there is limitation in order to have, because we are still in the matrix. The matrix, what we've done this week is a huge step to get out of the eggshell. But in the eggshell, there are limitations. We're not yet walking on water. We're not yet flying through the air. So there's a story, a very true story, of this Native American man who I've spoken of once or twice. He appeared to me as an ascended master. His name was Stalking Wolf, and he appeared in he's Tom Brown's teacher, and he appeared here, I think, 3 or 4 times in 2004. Actually, no, sorry, earlier. It was earlier, before that. Grandfather, as he's called, had an experience where he walked several times all the way down to the tip of South America, once, several times across America, back and forth, all the way up to the tundra. And Grandfather was driven to go up to the tundra because that was where his next lesson lay. So he was rather surprised to find, as he was making his way through Washington up the coast to get there, he was really in a hurry because he had to put his food supplies in and everything before winter came, because winter can be 70 below zero there. So, and this is Fahrenheit, 70 below zero. So he was really in a hurry so he could get everything done if he was to spend the winter there. So Grandfather was surprised when he got the absolute urge that he had to move off his track to the foot of the mountains in Washington. Grandfather had been very puzzled and worried for many months about the fact that he was dependent on tools. He couldn't, just like the Arctic fox, get by in the winter without making extra lashings for his teepee, for getting the hides to make the teepee and the shelter, putting food stores by. He needs his knife, he needs his axe. That the fox doesn't need it. And Grandfather felt that made humanity somehow less. And he was concerned about that. He wanted to transcend the need for the use of tools. And so, as he went to the right, there was a cabin there in the middle of the wilderness, and he lay and staked it out for many days, and he saw an old man living there, and he realized that the old man was by himself and that he was living much like a native person did in long time ago, very much in harmony with the land. So after days of observing him, and Grandfather was such a good stalker, he was so observant, that he could track somebody over cement. He could see tracks over cement. That's how good of an observer he was. And he was a stalker, which is a trained observer for the tribe. And so, he went inside to the old man and he knocked on the door and said, Spirit led me here, or whatever Native Americans call it. And I'm led here. I would like very much to get to know you. He stayed for a little bit, got to really like the old man. And so Grandfather knew that he would soon be passing to the soul world, and he was sad to say goodbye to him and know he would never see him again. But it was time for him to move back up on his journey to the tundra. So they went for one last walk. And as they were walking, there was a dead sort of a game hen, which is called a ptarmigan, lying in front of them in the forest. And Grandfather said, "What's that?" to him, because he wondered why there was a ptarmigan in Washington where there isn't usually ptarmigans, and the ptarmigan was dead, just seemingly from nothing. He said, "What's that?" And the old man said, "What?" He said, "That in front of you." He said, "What?" He said, "Old man, are you blind?" He said, "Yes." The old man was so good at managing his environment that Grandfather, with all his observation skills, did not realize it. So it was a monumental event. It was a big event in Grandfather's life. That we don't need our senses. But why did we still need tools? So this was the realization. So grandfather said, why is the ptarmigan dead? And he put the old man's hand on the ptarmigan. And the old man said, because hunters in this area thought they could import them and spread them so they could hunt them. But this is too wet for them. They can't live here. They live in the snow, but they can't live in all this rain. And so the old man plucked out 3 feathers from the ptarmigan, and he gave it to grandfather. And grandfather knew that this ptarmigan was going to play a vital role for him in the insights that he would yet get. So he put it inside his medicine pouch that hung around his neck, and he took his leave of the old man, and he went back up the coast to the tundra, and he worked flat out as hard as he could, all the time wishing that he was like the fox that he saw, where he didn't need these tools. But he worked and worked and worked to get himself ready for the winter of that North Pole tundra. And finally, just as the first snow started falling, grandfather was ready. And the snow started coming down really, really heavily, covered the land. And one night, grandfather walked a little distance from his camp, and there was the most beautiful northern lights. And he sat on a bank of snow, sort of slightly in the bank of snow. He sat in it, watching the northern lights. And although grandfather never felt alone, because he spoke to the spirits of nature, he felt very alone that night because he wished there was someone he could share the beauty with. And it was just so extraordinary. He was there for quite a while, and then suddenly he looked down at the snow, and there was a strange sight. A little tiny dark ring, all shiny. And it seemed to be moving. And he thought, what is this? Is this one of the spirits playing a trick with me? What can this be? And then the little brown spot looked up at the sky, and it looked at grandfather, and right next to him in the snow was a ptarmigan, a white ptarmigan. And the white ptarmigan was all nestled into the snow, looking at the northern lights and sharing the beauty of it with grandfather. All of a sudden, grandfather remembered the 3 ptarmigan feathers, and how the ptarmigan could only live in its environment. It didn't need a tent, it didn't need things, but it could live here only because it was its climate. Grandfather's journey had come from the jungles of South America, up through the deserts of Mexico, up the coast of Oregon and Washington and Canada, all the way into the tundra. He had been in all those climates and was able to do it, to work with the limitation of the weather and the food supplies, because he had tools. It gave him freedom that the natural kingdom did not have. The Arctic fox cannot live in the desert, nor can it live in the jungle. The ptarmigan cannot live in the forests of Washington and Oregon. Grandfather could live everywhere because he had his tools. The tool of money is the tool of freedom. Today I would still only be teaching in Newport if I did not at some point realize that income was needed, and for years I did for free, that income was needed, and that income would be able to take these incredible tools that gives people freedom to rise above the mediocrity of the world's teachings. It would give them freedom, and I could have the freedom through money to spread it. Every ounce of profit goes back into spiritual journeys to take its message to the peoples of the world. If they could see the letters that come to us about how it changes lives, they would realize that without the freedom of the tool of money, that would not be possible in those lives. And we currently have 100,000 a day Twitter followers, if you add up all the languages that read the aphorisms that come, the insights that come. And it takes money, it takes staff, it takes love, it takes dedication, and it takes volunteers. And with money, you spend, if you want abundance, you spend money like love. You don't ask, what is the least love I can give my child or my husband or my wife or my partner? You say, what is the most love I can give? If you treat money that way, then it comes back to you, because it has now aligned itself with love that flows. The second thing that makes money grow into abundance, the second method, is gratitude. Gratitude multiplies times 100. The more gratitude you feel as you spend your money, the more it grows. The Lebanese poet Khalil Gibran says in his little book, The Prophet, he says, there are those who give with pain, and pain is their reward. And there are those who give with joy, and joy is their reward. And there are those who simply give, like the apple tree in the orchard, because to withhold is to perish. And their coffers are never empty. Because life says, oh, this must be a wealthy person, I better supply the wealth, because of how freely and joyfully and happily they are spending, not what they don't have, but what they do have. And then there is another technique to increasing abundance. And that is that you focus on what you have, and that's part of the gratitude. You focus on what you have, not on what you don't have. Because if you focus on lack, that is what increases. You empower what you focus on. And the last thing is that you put out a desire. I desire a flow of income in this area of my life. Now that I've put it out there, I am glad that it's coming, but I don't need it. It's not a need, it's just a preference. I am abundant this day. Abundance is not just money. People with a lot of money, I have met in dozens, and I mean billions. They are no more free than the man who struggles for a living, because they have to protect their money, they have to invest the money, they have to keep it from going into taxes. It becomes their boss. For everything that is not there, something else is. But unless you appreciate it, you're not living abundantly with what you have. So you live fully and abundantly and gratefully with what you have, but you hold open the space to receive. How do you do that? You can't only be proactive. There needs to be time of beingness. And in that quality, feel yourself as being all things. Just allow yourself no agenda, just to be. And what that does is open gates for the abundance to come in. You voice it, you focus on what is there, but you make spaces of doing nothing. You can tell them how, because you've just learned this. It's not meditation, just to receive. And those are the laws of abundance. We cannot have a love-hate relationship with our tools and expect that they will multiply. And light workers think money is dirty. Do you think your egg beater is dirty for beating your eggs? It's just a tool. Your calculator for doing your math for you, it's just a tool. And if we have this love-hate relationship with it, it is true that it should be respected, because it's a resource that enables you to have freedom. Freedom to buy the book you want. Freedom to do this or that. But at the same time, you see it as a flow, not a dam. It's a river, it's not a dam. So that's, to the best of my ability, the concepts of abundance.
Okay.
Wonderful.